Good Wednesday evening, everybody. This is Scott Baker, and I'm here with another midweek devotional for you. There's some rolling thunder outside, so I apologize if that creeps into the microphone. If you don't mind, just bear with me. Tonight, we're going to talk about failure, or more specifically, we're going to talk about how failure is in our nature. We, as human beings, excel at failure. We are masters at it. Some might even say that we are failure connoisseurs. But I mean, let's face it, if there's a way to mess something up, we'll find a way to do it. Now, I have to confess that I fall down the rabbit hole sometimes on YouTube and watch a channel called Fail Army. If you've never watched it before, Fail Army is a channel where people upload themselves or other people trying to do things, trying to accomplish things, and fail miserably. I haven't figured out why the channel is so entertaining to me, but some of the fails force me to just bust out laughing hysterically. I can't help myself. But some of the funniest videos are where people think they've succeeded only to realize ultimately that they've missed the mark. Now, let me give you an example of that. Two Kentucky farmers who owned racing stables had developed a keen and open rivalry over the years. One spring, each of them entered a horse in a local steeplechase. Now, for those who are not familiar with steeplechase, it's a horse racing event with obstacles in which the horses have to jump over them as they go. Now, thinking that a professional rider might actually help him outdo his old friend, one of the farmers hired a professional jockey. During the race, the two horses were leading at the last fence, but it proved too tough for both of them. Both horses fell, unseating their riders. But the obstacle didn't stop the professional jockey. He quickly jumped back on his horse and won the race. When he got back to the stables, the jockey found the farmer who had hired him fuming with rage. "What's the matter?" the jockey asked. "I won, didn't I?" "Oh yes," roared the farmer, "you won all right. The only problem is you won on the wrong horse." The jockey in this example personifies our nature as a species to fail. Failure is basically ingrained in our DNA. This really shouldn't come as a surprise, though. Our species invented the concept of failure, after all. Adam and Eve both failed God on a colossal level in the Garden of Eden, and that has set a solid precedent for mankind ever since. And as you continue reading the Bible, you will run across fail after fail after fail. And let's look at a couple of those. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of each because we're limited on time. Now, we've already mentioned Adam and Eve in the garden. Epic failure there. Later on, Abraham was a godly man, but failed to have patience about having a son and therefore tried to take matters into his own hands. Samson was a great and strong warrior who was given his strength by God, but he failed God by becoming arrogant about that very strength. Solomon was a godly man and probably the wisest man who ever lived. However, he failed to keep God as his priority and wound up listening to his wives about their gods. David was a fiercely godly man. However, he continuously failed when it came to following God's commands. He even committed adultery and murder. The New Testament is also full of examples with failures. The Apostle Peter, who boasted that he would die alongside Jesus, failed him by lying about his relationship with him. John Mark, the cousin of Barnabas, failed both Barnabas and Paul when he deserted them on the way to Cyrus. Paul started off as a major prosecutor of Christians and failed God constantly by trying to disrupt the spread of Jesus' ministry. Herod Agrippa, who was not a godly man, he failed majorly when he ignored Paul's teachings and did not accept Christ as his Savior. If you look, the list goes on and on and on. So why do I even bring this up? Why am I discussing failure? The concept of failure is such a negative term in our culture. So why should I address such an odd topic? Well, the answer is very simple, and it's one that I think we need more than ever right now. I'm talking about it tonight because we need to be reminded of a very important lesson, a vital lesson that pertains to our spirituality. And the lesson is this: failure is not fatal. Now, let me be clear. I'm talking about failure in our spiritual lives, not failure in any other regard. Failure can most certainly be failure in some situations. There's a saying that comes to mind that says, if at first you don't succeed, you won't get a second chance at skydiving. Now think about that for a second. But tonight we're talking about failure as a Christian, failure in our spiritual lives. Failure as a Christian is a definite thing, and it is going to happen. We have to accept that fact. We are all going to fail. There's no way around it. No matter how good our intentions are or how righteous of a person we may be, we will ultimately fail in some fashion. We are failures in God's eyes right out of the gate, thanks to our sin nature. But guys, by the grace of God, our failures are redeemable. And that's something that's very important to remember, very important to keep in mind. When we fall, we have a Savior who will help us get back up. When we hit our lowest points in our lives, we have a God that will help us rise. When we lose sight of Him, He never gives up on us. We truly serve a mighty and glorious God, and we should always keep Him in our thoughts. But our human nature, our sin nature, guarantees that won't happen. Thankfully, even though we are abject failures, God still loves us, and He looks past those failures. Now, I don't know about you, but knowing this helps me sleep better at night. Guys, thanks for listening tonight. I really hope this has been inspirational. Take care, keep the faith, and God bless.